J.P. Gilmore of Vintegrity Wines, and we're at Osteria Centro for my favorite bottle. My guest today is BradMcLeroy of Ayres Vineyard and Winery in Oregon. Brad is owner, founder, vintner, winemaker of Ayres, and he's from Kansas City. Brad, welcome back to your hometown of Kansas City.
It's great to be back. Thank you.
It's good to have you back. There have been a lot of changes in Kansas City since you left years ago to start Ayres Vineyard and Winery in Oregon.
It's a lot of changes. It's all good, all good.
Brad, you and I met in the 90s when you owned and operated Gomer's Midtown Fine Wine Shop on 39th and Broadway. Tell me a little bit about that store.
That store was a great experience for myself. I had Gomer's Midtown at 39th and Broadway, and I opened the store in 1993 and built the store up over the course of 8 years. And from that, allowed my wife and I to move to Oregon to start our vineyard and winery back in 2000. So it was a stepping stone for us to get to Oregon. But while we were here, it was a great opportunity to take a business, modify it, and grow it, and be a part of the community.
And I remember Gomer's was a really unique fine wine shop.
It was. I fell in love with wine soon out of college. And wine is one of those things that it's something that you can continue to learn over the course of your life. It opens up the door to travel, to fine dining. So it was something that intrigued me. I realized that there was an opportunity to have a store in which you focus just on fine wine. Of course, we had other things available, spirits and beer also. But really, the quest of wine is one of a lifestyle, really, because no matter what you know, no matter what you do, there's always somebody next door to you that knows twice the amount about wine. And that's the thing that I find is just intriguing. It's a life passion for me. So.
And how did you go from owning Gomer's Midtown in Kansas City to Ayres Winery in Oregon?
Through coffee on a Sunday morning with my wife Kathleen, we hatched this plan to move to Oregon, to purchase land, and establish a vineyard as well as a winery. And we did it.
Brad, why did you choose Oregon instead of another area?
Oregon it's the climate I think, for Pinot Noir. And secondly, it's a relatively newer industry, and the opportunities are still there. And it is a very collegial industry where your neighbors help you. I've been blessed with advice from neighbors, whether it comes to viticulture or enology. There's not a thing of competition within the industry. It's a sense that if we all make better wine, the industry will rise. So it was a no-brainer.
So it sounds like a great place to go to start a winery.
We feel very fortunate, yes.
And then tell me about the process when you got to Oregon. How did you get into planning your vineyard, selecting your land, and then eventually founding your winery?
So back in 2000, my wife and I sold our home, sold our business, packed up the U-Haul, packed up the dogs, and moved to Oregon. We ended up renting a house in Portland. I sold wine wholesale to get to know the market out there. And from there, became friends with the cellar master at a winery called Domaines Ruin. That opportunity arose that I could be a cellar hand. Started there. After the course of 6 years, I left there as a cellar master. So I got my winemaking experience on the job. We realized when we were in Kansas City, if we weren't in Oregon, we weren't going to find land, because every time we got the phone call from the real estate agent, booked the flight, and flew out, it was gone. So we just moved. And sure enough, after being in Oregon for roughly about 4 months, I still remember the day I got the phone call in the evening. This property's going on the market tomorrow. Can you meet me there at 7? I was there, looked at the property, called my wife Kathleen on the phone. We found it. This is it. We're going to pay asking price because this opportunity does not come around again. And we did it.
And so tell me about the vineyard land that you bought in Oregon, where it is and what makes it special.
So we were very fortunate. We found a property on an AVA called Ribbon Ridge. And Ribbon Ridge crafts very distinct Pinot Noir. It's definitely the darker fruit profile, the blackberry, the boysenberry, the blueberry. And there's this overwhelming earth realm. And buying an old filbert orchard is ideal because so many of the vineyards in Oregon are planted on old either nut orchards or fruit orchards on the hillside. The valley floor, two vigorous soils. Hillside, not as much vigor, great for grapes. So when this became available, we bought it.
Okay, and Ribbon Ridge is kind of a who's who of great Oregon properties. Who are any notable neighbors there?
Sure. So our vineyard and winery is just south of established Brick House. They were established in, I believe, 1990. And just to the west of us is Beaufrere, as well as Patricia Grain cellars.
Okay.
And so we feel that we're very fortunate. We got the really good zip code, if you will. But when we bought the property, Ribbon Ridge was not an AVA. That was granted back in 2005. And of all of the new AVAs within Oregon, it's the smallest, and it's one of the most sought after.
Okay. We've talked about AVA a couple times. Tell me about that. What does that refer to?
So an AVA is American Viticultural Area. And so more or less, why is one area different than the next? Well, predominantly it's the soil, it's the climate, and the expression of Pinot Noir that you get from that site. And Ribbon Ridge is all marine sedimentary soils. So we were under the ocean at one time. So that's what gives us the darker expression, because our grapes grow in soils that comprise of sand, it's clay, and ancient seashells. And when you're digging in our vineyard, and it's fun when you come across some of these little seashells, and it's like, wow, that's been here for a long time.
So Brad, it sounds like the production on your wines are a lot smaller than some neighboring wineries.
It's all done by hand.
Okay.
And the first installation was 3 acres. The next spring we put in an additional 7 acres. Took a little break, and then over the course of the next couple of years, planted an additional 8 acres. So the property itself is 40 acres, and we have 18 under vine.
Okay. And what's your property planted to?
Pinot Noir.
100% Pinot Noir.
We've got 500 experimental white grapes on the property.
Okay.
And that being Pinot Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc, and Pinot d'Auxerrois.
Okay. So you produce 5 different wines at Ayres Vineyard and Winery. Can you tell me a little bit about each one?
First vintage was 2001, and we made 3 barrels worth of wine.
Wow.
All from purchased fruit from neighbors. And I mean, 75 cases, you kind of blink and it's gone. But it was making 75 cases for the very first time was as much work as it is almost now we make 35 to 4,000 cases. So the learning curve was definitely there. But the '01 was a very memorable just because it was the first time we've done it, as well as every vintage in Oregon is different because we have weather fluctuation. So as a winemaker, I get to craft almost a different wine every year. Okay. That's what I love about Oregon. One of the wines that we like to hang our hat on is we call Pioneer. And Pioneer is all Pinot Noir made just from one specific clone of Pinot Noir. It's the Dijon 667 clone. And often use the descriptor blackberry cobbler meets mushroom strudel. So it's got that really dark black fruit profile, but then this overwhelming earth component to it. And to me, that's when the yin and yang speak. That's a lot of fun.
That sounds great. Now that the Ayres Pioneer Pinot has magically appeared, well, let's try a glass, shall we?
That's a great idea.
Okay. So, and you make how many Pinot Noirs?
So we make 4 different bottlings of Pinot Noir.
Okay.
And for myself, making 4 different offerings, they have to be different. Pinot, to me, is one of the varietals that where it's grown really dictates the style, the texture of the wine you're going to make. And I want people, when they come to taste our wines, I have 4 different offerings. I want there to be 4 different wines because your palate is different than my palate, than everyone's palate, because your palate is your palate. Mm-hmm. And I want you to say, hey, this wine is different than the next. Pioneer is definitely our darkest, our most structured example of Pinot Noir because it's exclusively one clone of Pinot, the Dijon 667.
Okay.
And if you were to look at your pinky nail, that's about the average size of the berries. So they're tiny. So with the smaller berries, you've got more skin than juice. So it lends itself to a darker expression of Pinot.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So Brad, this is extremely rich Pinot Noir. Does that have to do with the Ribbon Ridge?
That is exactly it. I mean, Ribbon Ridge makes these dark, really expressive examples of Pinot Noir. And we feel so fortunate to be there. But to me, this is definitely, it's blackberry cobbler that meets the mushroom strudel. So it's got that really dark black core fruit. But as equal important is the earth realm. So in all the Pinots that I make I strive because the fruit of Pinot Noir is it's one of the most beautiful things to eat off the vine. But with that, you need the earth element also.
And so this, I get, just a huge richness, big fruit, and then a length. And it's, to me, seems really concentrated. Is that part of a smaller winery or what you do in the vineyard?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think that one of the biggest lessons that I took from my stint at Domaines Rouen is any winemaking task that you can make smaller, you have more control.
Okay.
The flip side to that coin is it often creates a lot more work for you. But we're still of the size that I can make those decisions. So making the wine on a smaller scale as we're around 4,000 cases. We can do things that the larger wineries cannot do just because of sheer volume. And actually living on the property with 18 acres of Pinot Noir in my backyard really allows me to oversee what's going on day to day in the vineyard. And you share your space with the vines, and I think all winemakers would love to be able to do that. I feel very fortunate.
Okay, great. So tell me a little bit about the winery. This is a small family-owned winery on your property.
It is. I live on one of the houses on the property with my wife and 2 kids, and next door are my in-laws. And actually, their house sits on top of the winery. So when we designed the winery, we designed it after a lot of the small coves in that of Burgundy or that of the Rhone region. Over there, your winery is beneath your home. That's what you do.
Okay.
So Mother Nature helps heat and cool our place. So we're 3/4 below grade, so it's almost constantly 60 degrees. So Pinot Noir loves to do its job there. And having the winery next door, the commute to work is quite nice.
Yeah, yes. That's great. And the vineyards surround the winery?
The vineyards surround, yes. The vineyards are in our backyard.
Okay.
Yes.
And so if folks from Kansas City want to visit Oregon wine country, can they come visit Ayres?
Of course. The way we do tastings is we do it by appointment because we're not always there. And myself and my father-in-law are the ones that host visitors. We are the 2 guys that make the wine. So we want you to get the experience that hey, we know the answers. It's not some employee that has to go look for the answer in a book. And we are not always open, so we always encourage people to call or email, and we gladly work with schedules to make it work.
So it sounds like Ayres Winery and Vineyard is truly a family affair.
Oh, it is. We all have our roles. I get to wear the hat as the winemaker and oversee all of the work that's done in the vineyard. But without Kathleen, my wife, she keeps the empire going. She does so much of our marketing and our administrative stuff, and she keeps the business going the right direction. My father-in-law, he makes the wine with myself, as well as my mother-in-law. She helps out with tastings and events and whatnot. So collectively, we all make it work.
And is your father-in-law minding the winery while you're here visiting with us?
He actually has a weekend full of appointments, yes, as we are here in Kansas City.
Great.
And that's, we always encourage people to come. And we often see smaller groups, so it is truly a different experience when you come see us. Because if the season is right, we take people out into the vineyard. You're able to see what's going on. If you come during harvest, that's amazing because you actually get to go out and we'll eat Pinot Noir off the vine. And once you eat Pinot Noir off the vine, it's very difficult to buy store-bought grapes, I'll tell you that.
And there's another member of your family we haven't mentioned yet, Gigi.
She is a special one, yes. We have always had dogs around, and we actually right now have 3 vineyard dogs. Gigi being one of the most interesting dogs that we've ever had. If you were to take an old English sheepdog and throw in a poodle, that's Gigi.
So the production on the Pioneer Pinot Noir, how many cases do you make of that?
So most vintages, it's around 300 to 350 cases. So we don't make a bunch of it. So if one becomes a Pioneer fan, one should act on it sooner because it typically doesn't last all that long.
And so every vintage you may have available for 2 or 3 months?
That's typically the case when it comes to Pioneer, yes.
And so at 350 cases, there are some Oregon Pinot Noir producers that produce 300,000 cases, right?
We have it all. We've got the large operators and we've got a lot of small operators like ourselves. But that's with Pinot Noir, the very small lots, I think it's important because you really can see the difference of the wines with a smaller
So you guys truly are a small boutique, family owned and operated.
That is to the T, yes.